The cloudy sky over Seattle matched how Elizabeth Morrison felt inside. As she stood by the window of her research lab, she watched the raindrops sliding slowly down the glass, just like the silent tears on her own face. Elizabeth was stunned. Stress? She tried to think. Yes, Harper had been quieter, but stressed? What could have caused that? Was there something that triggered it? The doctor asked gently. I don't know, Elizabeth said slowly. I've been busy with work lately. My parents and sister have been helping watch Harper. Her voice trailed off. Did something happen at school? Dr. Summers asked. There was a family presentation project today, the doctor added. Her teacher said Harper started trembling and breathing heavily right before her turn. Then she collapsed. Elizabeth shut her eyes. Harper had been working on that project for weeks. She had collected photos and made a collage. She said she'd finish it while visiting her grandparents last weekend. Dr. Morrison, there's a call from your daughter's school, said Mary, one of her colleagues, peeking into the lab. Her voice pulled Elizabeth back into the moment. Elizabeth quickly pulled her phone from the pocket of her lab coat. Her heart sank when she saw she had missed 3 calls from the school. They only called her like this if something was seriously wrong. Thank you, she said to Mary, putting down the lab tools she had been working with. Her hands, usually so steady, were now shaking as she dialed the school back. Westside Elementary School, this is Elizabeth Morrison. I missed some calls about my daughter, Harper. Ms. Morrison, thank you for calling us back. Your daughter collapsed suddenly during class today. She's been taken by ambulance to St. Mary's Hospital. Elizabeth's heart froze. Everything around her seemed to stop. She grabbed her phone and called her boss, asking for emergency leave, then ran out of the building toward her car. Her thoughts were a whirlwind, fear, confusion, and concern all crashing in at once. It had been 3 years since Elizabeth's divorce. Raising 8-year-old Harper on her own had been both a challenge and a blessing. Her ex-husband, Michael, had left for California to focus on his career. His calls had become rare and impersonal over the past year. Still, Harper had been her light in the darkness. While driving, Elizabeth called her parents. Mom, Harper collapsed at school, she said, barely keeping her voice steady. They took her to St. Mary's Hospital. Oh no, her mother, Martha, gasped. We'll go right away. Your father's here too. Don't worry, Elizabeth. Everything will be all right. Can you let Vanessa know? I will, Elizabeth replied quickly. Her mother's calm voice gave her a small sense of relief. Her parents, George and Martha, had retired after long careers in healthcare. He was a pediatrician, she a nurse. Her younger sister Vanessa was a lawyer, busy with her career and happily single. They all adored Harper and often took care of her, especially when Elizabeth had to work late or on weekends. In fact, over the last few weeks, Elizabeth had barely had time off. Her research project at the pharmaceutical lab had reached a critical stage, and she was working non-stop. Her parents often told her, "You need to rest. Leave Harper with us for the weekend." They seemed like the perfect, dependable family. But as Elizabeth gripped the steering wheel, something inside her didn't sit right. Lately, Harper hadn't been her usual happy self. She had become quiet, withdrawn. When Elizabeth asked how school was, Harper would just shrug and say, "It's fine," or "Nothing." She had especially become quiet after returning from her grandparents' or her Aunt Vanessa's house. Elizabeth had tried not to overthink it, assuming it was part of growing up, or maybe a side effect of the divorce. She'd read that kids around 7 or 8 go through emotional changes. Still, something didn't feel right. She pulled into the hospital's parking lot, her mind racing. Did I miss the signs? Was I too focused on work to see what Harper needed from me? She ran to the entrance, gave her name at reception, and waited anxiously while the nurse looked up her information. "Dr. Summers will be with you shortly," the nurse said kindly. "Please wait in the pediatric ward on the 4th floor." Elizabeth got into the elevator. The walls of the pediatric floor were covered in bright drawings made by children. Normally, they would have made her smile. Today, they only made her more nervous. A female doctor in a white coat approached her in the waiting room. "Ms. Morrison, I'm Dr. Summers. Let's talk in a private room." Elizabeth followed her into a quiet consultation room. Her heart was pounding. "First, let me assure you that Harper's condition is stable. She's not in immediate danger," Dr. Summers said gently. Elizabeth felt a wave of relief, but only for a moment. The doctor's face looked serious, like she wasn't telling her everything. "But?" Elizabeth asked, barely able to speak. "Harper had a sudden hyperventilation episode in class, followed by fainting. The teacher acted fast and called an ambulance. That helped a lot." Dr. Summers looked at her tablet. "We ran several tests, blood work, EKG, brain scans. Everything looks normal. Then what caused it? We believe it was a reaction to extreme stress. We call it an acute stress response. In children, this kind of stress can cause physical symptoms. Sensitive kids like Harper sometimes don't show stress the way adults do." "Was there something that triggered it?" the doctor asked gently. "I don't know," Elizabeth said slowly. "I've been busy with work lately. My parents and sister have been helping watch Harper." Her voice trailed off. "Did something happen at school?" Dr. Summers asked. "There was a family presentation project today," the doctor added. Her teacher said Harper started trembling and breathing heavily right before her turn. Then she collapsed. Elizabeth shut her eyes. Harper had been working on that project for weeks. She had collected photos and made a collage. She said she'd finish it while visiting her grandparents last weekend. "I want to see my daughter," Elizabeth said, standing up. "Of course," said Dr. Summers. "But before that, there's something else." A child psychologist, Dr. Jenkins, also spoke with Harper. "She thinks Harper may be dealing with something deeper than just school stress." Elizabeth's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" Harper avoided certain questions, especially ones about her family. She was nervous and defensive. "It could mean there's something or someone making her feel unsafe." Elizabeth looked at the doctor in disbelief. "You think she's afraid of someone?" "We're not sure yet," Dr. Summers replied gently. "But it's important to create a space where she feels safe to open up. Having you close by will help." Elizabeth nodded and followed her into the hallway. Her room is 412, just past the nurse's station. As she walked quickly down the hall, a nurse at the desk smiled at her. "You must be Ms. Morrison, Harper's mom. Your family was just in there with her. They were really worried." Elizabeth stopped. "My family?" "Yes, her grandparents and an aunt, I think. They were very caring. Didn't want to leave her side." Relieved, Elizabeth started walking again, but then she heard something strange. Laughter, coming from just around the corner. She turned and saw her parents and Vanessa walking together, talking and laughing. They looked relaxed, cheerful, even though they'd just come from Harper's hospital room. She walked up to them. "Dad, Mom, Vanessa." They stopped when they saw her. Instantly, their cheerful expressions disappeared. Her mother spoke first. "Oh, Elizabeth, you finally made it," she said, her voice carrying a hint of judgment. "Don't worry. Harper is fine. She just needs rest." "What did the doctor say?" Elizabeth asked. "Just stress," her father said in a confident tone. "These things happen, especially when there's tension at home." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Harper is very sensitive. Maybe if you were home more, this could have been avoided." Elizabeth was stunned. It was as if they were blaming her. And the way they had been laughing just a minute ago, how could they act so casual? "I came as soon as I could. I left work immediately," she said, trying to defend herself. "Of course. Work comes first, as usual," Martha said coldly. "Luckily, we were here for Harper." "Are you leaving?" Elizabeth asked. "We're going to get something to eat," George replied. "We've been here for hours. Want to come?" "Harper's sleeping." Something in their tone felt off. Almost like they didn't want her to see Harper. "No," Elizabeth said firmly. "I want to see my daughter." The three exchanged a strange look before her mother said, "All right. We'll come back later. Call us if anything changes. They walked toward the elevator, whispering to each other. Elizabeth stood frozen, a strange, uneasy feeling settling over her. Something wasn't right. Their calm attitude, their strange looks, it didn't match what had just happened. She pushed the feeling down and walked toward room 412. Her hand trembled as she opened the door to see her daughter. Elizabeth was stunned. Stress? She tried to think. Yes, Harper had been quieter, but stressed? What could have caused that?